Bengals fans, make sure to give me a follow over on Twitter at StoneShields_. Need to get to 500 followers by the end of the month. So we got today and tomorrow to get it done. And I believe at last check, we need about 26 more followers in order for that to happen. So help me out. Give me a follow over on Twitter. All of our Bengals Breakdown content will be posted to my Twitter page. All of our videos as well as some personal thoughts and opinions there as well. Injury updates, you name it, we've got it on my Twitter page at StoneShields_. So go ahead and give me a follow on Twitter. Would be greatly appreciated. Bengals fans, what's going on? Stone Shields on hand once again for another edition of Bengals Breakdown. On today's show, we're going to be talking about what Colin Cowherd had to say about the Cincinnati Bengals. Colin Cowherd, of course, works for FS1, has his show, The Herd. Out of all the talking heads in the media, I honestly think Cowherd is the best one. I really like his work. I know some people think some of the stuff he says is a bit outlandish, but that's kind of how it is for all of those guys, right? But if I had to pick one guy, I think Colin Cowherd's usually more right than a lot of those guys in his position. So let's dive into what exactly he had to say about Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. He said, the Cincinnati team, they let go of Mixon, which, by the way, even very good quarterbacks need run games. They've already moved off defensive players a year before. They're going to pay Jamar Chase. I feel bad for Joe Burrow. The Bengals are what the Chargers' reputation was. They won't spend the money. You take Joe Burrow, Chase, and Trey Hendrickson off this team, they don't have a lot of players in Cincinnati. If you took the best 22 players in this game, Philly's got 17 to 18 of those players. But again, Philadelphia spends money. Jeffrey Lurie, he'll spend money on everything. And I think that's something that we really haven't talked about a ton here on Bengals Breakdown. It's been well known. If you're a Bengals fan, you understand this is a cheap organization, right? They always have been. And I think, they should get a lot of the blame for that. Zac Taylor is taking crazy heat in the media for the way this team is playing in 2024, but I think you got to go a little bit more upstairs with some of the issues with this team. We haven't drafted well as a team over the past couple of years. That's something that, especially when the Bengals were going on that Super Bowl run, something they were getting away with was, they had some really good draft picks that were kind of, balancing out the fact that they weren't being aggressive in free agency and bringing in any valuable veteran players. And I think over the past couple of years, your drafting hasn't been as good. That's kind of, brought to light some of the issues in terms of the fact that you just don't like to spend money. We'll get into it a little bit later. There's some guys on this team, again, we'll get into this in a bit, that are getting paid good contracts, but the way that they structure their deals and their just overall philosophy for how they take care of business is simply outdated, and that is what is holding the team back for Cincinnati. But I believe the front office, Mike Brown, ownership, the Blackburn family, they are more to blame than Zac Taylor for the product that has been out on the field this year so far in 2024 for Cincinnati. Leads to the pinned comment of today's video. Who do you think deserves more blame? I know you guys absolutely hate Zac Taylor, and you've been going at him all season long, but be honest with me. Type HC for Zac Taylor, the head coach, of course, or type FO for the front office. Let me know in the comment section of today's video. That ad comes here on YouTube. That's totally fine. Take advantage of it. Get down in the comment section and let us know what you think. All right, we got some more quotes to get to here on today's edition of Bengals Breakdown. This is from John Middlekauff, who works for The Volume, which is Cowherd's podcast company, and they kind of had a joint podcast together, and we're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. Middlekauff says, what peer is he being Mike Brown, the owner, fishing off to go get his head coach? Historically, it's Zac Taylor's. There weren't a lot of people lined up for him, and he's cheap. Like, he's not talking to the Vrabels, the Belichicks. He's not talking to the big-name guys. This goes back to Carson Palmer. A lot of the complaints haven't just been entitled athletes moaning. Shouldn't be this way. It took Dean Spanos, who's the owner of the Chargers, a long time to say, okay, I need a $15 million head coach. He wants to bring his $3 to $4 million defensive coordinator. We'll do that too. It's going to be the best thing he's ever done. You can't tell me people wouldn't be lined up to coach Joe Burrow. But they'll also not taking the job for $6 million. And that's actually less than or more than what Zac Taylor is making right now. And then Colin Cowherd added this to that comment by Middlekauff and said, I don't think they'll fire Zac Taylor because the Brown family won't pay dead cap coach money. They won't pay it. They just refuse. to pay it. And for the record, I completely agree with Colin Cowherd here. I expect Zac Taylor to be back as the head coach in 2025, as he's still going to be under contract for this football team. And think about the Marvin Lewis era. Bad things happened during that era. Yeah, there was a period where he won a lot of games. Obviously didn't do anything in the postseason, but he stuck around probably a lot longer than he should have. And with Taylor here, like I said, I expect him to be here for a while. I know you guys think that is absolutely crazy and you think he needs to be gone right now, but that's just not the way the Bengals handle their business. And you guys are out in the comment section listening to all these people that you want to be the next coach of the Bengals. Look, they're not going to come be the coach for this team because they aren't getting paid that much. Taking a look at the lowest paid NFL coaches here, Zac Taylor is the second lowest paid coach in the National Football League at $4.5 million in annual salary. Only Cleveland's Kevin Stefanski is lower. Robert Saleh, of course, has been fired by the New York Jets, but that was his salary coming into the season. Green Bay, another small market there as well. So obviously there's a lot of talent here in Cincinnati, but if you're a big-name head coach, Mike Vrabel, for example, you're going to have a lot better offers when it comes to the salary that you're going to be getting. Sure, you might get a good roster here in Cincinnati, or I shouldn't even say a good roster, but a good franchise quarterback with a star wide receiver. But then looking at some of the other side of things, I think people don't necessarily realize that it's not all these NFL coaches are making the same amount. Andy Reid is making more than 4 times what Zac Taylor is making. Deservedly so, because Andy Reid's clearly the best coach in the National Football League. But then you got guys like Sean Payton, Mike Tomlin, Jim Harbaugh. This is his first year being back in the NFL after having that Michigan job. So if you're going to bring in a big name that you guys all say, oh, fire Zac Taylor, bring this guy in, well, you're going to have to pay a lot more than $4.5 million in order to do that. And I don't think Cincinnati's in a position to do that. Now, I understand, maybe Belichick. Let's just throw it out there. The biggest name, Bill Belichick, right? He's all about winning and trying to get another Super Bowl tie Tom Brady, get the most wins all time as an NFL head coach. Maybe he'll take less money to come work with Joe Burrow. But look, if you want to bring in a superstar head coach and get Zac Taylor out of here, you're going to have to pay him more money. And that's not something that the Brown family is willing to do. So I expect Zac Taylor to be back in 2025. Now, I personally don't have an issue with that. I just know all you guys out there in the comment section certainly do. So, name a Zac Taylor replacement for me in the comments of today's video. Another opportunity for you guys to get interactive with our show here at Bengals Breakdown. Be realistic with me, though, because if you throw out, Mike Vrabel's not going to come coach for $4.5 million. He's just simply not going to do that. He's going to have much better offers when it comes to annual salary. So let me know. Give me a Zac Taylor replacement in the comments of today's video. All right, next, we spent some time talking about, the head coaching there, right? And, again, Bengals obviously have not fired Zac Taylor at this point. I don't expect them to, but I think it's a lot bigger than that. And there's some personnel issues that we are going to dive into, and it starts with the ownership. Guys that they could have kept that they chose not to, and they're really paying the price for it right now. So that's going to be kind of the second half of today's show. But before that, we want to give a shout-out to our friends over at Gametime. Gametime is a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Gametime Picks is the easiest way to find and buy tickets to live events. Tickets for this weekend's game at home against the Las Vegas Raiders are on sale now, so head on over to Gametime and get the best deals possible. My 2 favorite features on Gametime: the seat views. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy with Gametime. Secondly, the all-in pricing. Toggling this feature up front allows you to see your total up front so you don't get hit with any of those surprise fees at checkout like some of those other ticketing companies can get you with. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, now let's get into some of the contracts here for Cincinnati. So these are some notable contracts that the Bengals have. Of course, they are paying Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is certainly taken care of. And then a big chunk of their salary cap is going towards T. Higgins because he's playing under the franchise tag. So T. Higgins is making a lot of money this year. Trey Hendrickson there, it says on the graphic, 1-year deal. He had a 1-year extension that he signed in 2023, I believe. and a 4-year deal prior to that. So that extension, that $21 million, is on that 1-year extension. And then some guys that they brought in free agency. Orlando Brown Jr. a couple of years ago, 4 years, $64 million. And then Sheldon Rankins as well, 2 years, $24.5 million. So they certainly are paying some guys. But and when you take a look at their cap, they really only have about $9 million in their cap. But they just don't restructure deals. That is their issue for Cincinnati right now. You see all kinds of, because the cap is going to continue to go up each year, right? So you see teams push money back, just keep pushing it back, and that allows you to spend in the short term. And that's not something that Cincinnati does. It's a philosophy that, quite frankly, is outdated. Like I said, there are things you can do to maneuver the cap. You see teams do it all the time. Philadelphia does this all the time with how they maneuver the cap, and the Bengals, for whatever reason, hate to restructure contracts, and they don't like pushing it further in the future, and that allows them to not quite have as much money to work with and to spend as some of the other teams. And really, it's just an outdated philosophy and something that they need to pivot on, because they're paying the price for it when it comes to their personnel out on the football field. The number one guy that all Bengals fans wish that was still on this football team is Jessie Bates III. There is absolutely no doubt about that. And they could have found a way to get Jessie Bates to stay in Cincinnati. They could have found a way, restructuring other people's deals in order to get him to stay in Cincinnati. Look, Bates is absolutely balling for Atlanta this year. Taking a look at some of the things that he has done this year, really has been solid in coverage, and he's been creating turnovers as well. And something also that is really impressive about Bates is his ability to force fumbles. You see this year, he has forced 3 fumbles for Atlanta already. He's a turnover machine, and he's just really a great athlete out there on the football field for the Atlanta Falcons, and somebody that clearly you are missing in your secondary. This team, I know he's a safety. I know he's not, that's not necessarily a main important position. But if you had Jessie Bates out there on that defense, your defense looks totally different, and you are much, much better. But the organization chose not to pay him. They moved off them, and the Bengals are paying the price right now for not being able to adapt and do the things that they needed to do to be a little bit more aggressive and keep a really good player in Jessie Bates III in Cincinnati. So name a player you wish the Bengals still had on their football team. For me, I think Jessie Bates is the main guy that pops to mind. Joe Mixon, look, the Bengals, of course, traded him away to the Houston Texans. I didn't have as much of a problem with that when it happened, because he did appear that he was aging. You were kind of going a different direction with some of your newer backs, but now Joe Dane is having a great year in Houston, so it looks like he made the wrong move there. But name a player in the comments section you wish the Bengals still had on their football team. And another issue that I think kind of ties into what Colin Cowherd was saying at the beginning of this show, you should have paid Ja'Marr Chase. There really is no reason that deal should not have got done. You see the way he is out there playing on the football field. He is clearly a top receiver in the National Football League, and he is only going to get more expensive as time goes on. This would have been the cheapest you would have been able to get Ja'Marr Chase. And most importantly, it would have limited distractions going into the season. It always just felt like there was kind of a cloud hanging over the Bengals when they were going into that first game against the New England Patriots, which really felt awkward, because it should have been a year where it's like, oh, we got T. Higgins, we got Ja'Marr Chase, we got a healthy Joe Burrow, let's go win. And there was just a weird feeling around it, kind of a dark feeling, because you knew Chase certainly was upset with how his contract was handled. You had T. Higgins that did show up during camp and, put his all out there during camp, but he was frustrated leading into that he got franchise tagged. So just a lot of distractions that were around Cincinnati at this time, and it's another an example of incompetence by the ownership and the front office. Could have done a lot better things in order for that to be kind of fixed going into the season. Now you're sitting there in a desperate spot here as you get ready to host the Las Vegas Raiders. Also, from a pass rush perspective, you knew this was going to be an issue. You only have one pass rusher in Trey Hendrickson. You absolutely knew that this was going to be a problem. Sam Hubbard, love him. He's done great things for you. He's done great things in the community as well. But as far as rushing the quarterback, that's never been his MO. And as he gets older, it becomes less of his MO. And Sam Hubbard's a guy that, I think he's not capable of being that wingman for Trey Hendrickson. You needed to have brought somebody else in. Myles Murphy looks like a whiff who you took in the first round a couple of seasons ago. That's another example of organizational incompetence, which is something you have with this Cincinnati Bengals football team. So these problems could have been solved coming into the season if you were going to be a little bit less cheap, pay some guys, help fill some spaces. A couple of years ago, you keep Jesse Bates III, your team looks a whole lot different. I think for a while you were getting away with it because you were drafting so well, but now you're not drafting as well, and you're sitting there looking at yourself saying, oh, we need to probably spend a little bit more money in order for us to kind of get things on the right track. Now you got Joe Burrow, one of the best quarterbacks in football, a star wide receiver in Jamar Chase, and a losing record to show for it because you simply don't have enough pieces in place. Now don't miss any of our Bengals coverage. We have pretty much daily videos for you guys here at the channel. So hit that sub button, youtube.com/BengalsTV.